Hi, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Career Tuesday. We are so excited today to introduce you to our guests from NatWest. Those of you that do not know, NatWest has been working for a very long time at UConn, right now under the NatWest markets, but previously under RBS. So, I mean, I know we've got some alumni on here that actually came in through that program. So to introduce you, first I want to tell you we've got quite a few UConn alumni on this call. And for anybody that's joining us either live or later on, you're going to get to see what really happens when you're part of the Finance Society and Student Managed Fund and student orgs. Because through those programs, that's where a lot of the team members joined here. So I'm going to kick it off by introducing Matt Ahrens, and Matt is the one who helps coordinate this. So he may not be the most senior in the group. He is the one that helped us coordinate all this. So Matt, analyst in credit trading, right, Matt?
Yes.
Also part of the Student Managed Fund and the Finance Society. You were a finance major from the UConn School of Business. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I graduated from, UConn School of Business back in 2019. I was fortunate enough to connect with NatWest while I was on campus. We also have one of our other fellow alumni who helped connect me with NatWest, John Roberts, who also came through the graduate program. But I joined as part of our analyst program, which included, on scene training where you go through and meet with a bunch of different teams. We had a formal, training process in London, and then you come back here and you join your team and you work on the desk with your team. I currently work in investment grade credit trading, helping support trade Yankee banks and Yankee autos. And very excited to be back connecting with the university because I know how talented and how eager UConn students can be. So happy to help.
Excellent. Happy to have you back. And for the students that are looking at this, we are so connected to alumni. I went and looked Matt up, looked him up in our student admin to see, did we get to talk to him? How did all this work? Up at the top of my screen, John Roberts, Associate FX Options Trading, also UConn alumni 2018. John, you want to say hello?
Hi. Yeah, so I'm an associate on the FX options desk. When I started at NatWest, I was on the research side, so I've sort of seen a couple different sides. So I guess, what do you want us to talk about? Our experience when we started, or?
Yeah, well, so we'll come back to that. We just want to make sure that we give everybody a chance to say
Okay.
so everybody knows who we're all talking to.
Sure.
Lauren, I know that you are on through the phone, so letting everybody know that Lauren is here and joining us. We're not going to hold it against Lauren because she's a graduate from Fairfield University. You were so excited to have you here anyways. You joined in 2019 and you're in the credit sales. So can you take a minute to say hello? Did we lose her? You might be on mute, Lauren, if you can hear us. Okay, we're going to circle back to Lauren. And I'm very excited to introduce everybody to Kyle Lewis, Vice President of U.S. Sales and Rates. Kyle, you are over here. Let's see. Can you hear us?
I can.
Excellent.
I just had to step into an office because my service is terrible, so I apologize. Yeah, so I'm part of the U.S. Rates sales desk here. I've been doing this for about 9 years. Graduated from Quinnipiac in 2012, so also a Connecticut, just not a UConn grad. And yeah, what else can I add? Sorry, I'm kind of in the middle. I kind of missed like the very beginning, so I do apologize.
Nope, you are right in perfectly because we're just saying a quick introduction to everybody and remembering that people will be watching this later. So this is a good way for them to be able to kind of go back and forth in the video to know who's talking and what they're getting some information from. And
Perfect.
we've got Edward Brown. Edward, do you want to say hello? Edward, high yield. Tell me about high yield. What does that mean? What?
Yeah.
Which department?
Some people call it junk, just say non-investment grade. But so my name's Edward Brown. I'm the head of loan and high yield debt capital markets here at NatWest.
We lost you there, Edward. Can anybody else hear?
No. Can you
Mm-mm.
hear me?
So,
Yes, now you can.
yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I graduated. I graduated in
So we do, just to let everybody know, we do know that, you know, we were saying the same thing here at UConn, the same thing that's happening at NatWest is there's a lot of connectivity issues today. So Edward, please excuse us because we're kind of having a hard time hearing. I think one of the things that's really important that is you're listening to all of the different people that are on the call is all of the different departments and the areas of NatWest that, you know, we're so excited to have everybody from the different areas because I think there's a big question when somebody looks at a company and starts thinking about applying to it. It's not really understanding the breakdown of the departments, the different areas. Where do I apply? Is it okay to apply for more than one? So I think we'll do here is we'll like take a step back for a moment and just talk about NatWest. It's the investment banking arm of NatWest Group, right? I mentioned in the beginning that you were originally part of RBS, but John, can I just ask you to just take a moment to kind of give the listeners an idea of, you know, the different programming within NatWest, kind of break down the company?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. With most investment banks, I guess there's a public side and a private side. So if you think of the public side, you think of sales and trading. And then if you think of the private side, you have debt capital markets, like what Edward does, and then investment banking and stuff like that. So I work on the public side, so I'm a trader. So I trade FX options. And I guess how you would break down the two sides is sales and trading is a bit more fast paced. You know, if you think of it from like a transaction level, you do a lot more transactions in sales and trading than you would do in capital markets or M&A or something like that. But the size of the transactions are much larger on the other side. So it's sort of like, I guess the way it was described to me was sort of like one side is more fast paced, I guess, and a bit quicker turnover. You know, you're sort of have to make decisions fast and you're sort of in and out of things. And then on the other side, you know, you have a lot more riding on like doing a certain deal, or, you know, you do a lot of work on a certain deal and it creates like an end result. The other thing is also on the trading side, we have negative, you know, P&L days in addition to positive P&L days, whereas like on the private side, it's usually zero or positive. So it's like another thing you want to think about, I guess, if you're applying is like, what's your risk tolerance? Would you be able to have, you know, risk tolerance to have negative days and sort of see through that and then try to work to get out of those negative holes, or are you more like project focused, I guess, and work on longer term projects?
So would you say that when a student is thinking about, you know, I know I want to work for NatWest, I like the investment banking. I like the fact that, you know, for one thing, you know, part of the charm of it is you're located in Stanford as well. So that working in New York City versus working in Stanford. But would you say when somebody's looking at the different roles that you really want to think about who you are as a person, what your strengths are, whether, you know, as you said, you're somebody who really loves that adrenaline of the high risk, or you're somebody that likes, you know, to be more involved longer term in the project. Is there a way for people to kind of identify that when they're looking at the different roles?
Yeah, I would think so. I apologize because I haven't looked at the listing, but basically anything that would be in trading. I mean, I'm pretty sure our HR team does a good job at sort of describing the positions, but are you asking, is it easy to
Maybe John, I
understand from
can
the
kind of
position?
maybe I
Yeah, could
can
you help me out here,
kind of
Matt?
pick it up. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think we had a flyer out. So you know, besides just, you know, you think about how a bank is structured, you know, a lot of it is client facing roles. And as John kind of described, there's a private side and a public side. The private side is, you know, working with investors and private companies and issuers of, you know, accessing the market, creating a game plan, working on a project and, you know, working on their needs from that perspective. And then on the public side, we think about dealing with investors who are actively, you know, looking to invest their money, hedge their, positions, their portfolios, and things like that. And then there's a whole team of resources and groups of people who fit into the bank and enable us to effectively service customers. So part of that is working as a risk analyst, where, of course, as an investment bank and in sales and trading, we're taking active risk that, as John described, could have, negative days and positive days. We try to have as much positive days as possible, but just like, any business, not everything is predictable. And we have a whole team and a whole group that is set up to work in risk, and that works in many different projects, many different aspects, and it's an absolutely integral part of how we operate our business. And they do so much to help, work with front office people, work with people in the background, and ultimately, work with a lot of managers to think about how we use our business. And then, just like any other group, we have a lot of talented HR resources who can help us as we think about our careers, how we want to operate as employees. I brought it up kind of before, but we had a whole team of HR who helped design our graduate program, which included, having formal training in London, coming back. You have your, series exams, which goes to be, a licensed professional. And they do everything that they can to support all of our front office employees to effectively service customers. So there's really a wide range of things that you can sort of think about in terms of how you fit in, whether, like John said, working on long projects, working day to day, working to, support people. And those are all things that, you can ask questions about if you have any types of ideas of any of those kind of target you. That's why we kind of do events like this, is to kind of figure out, oh, that sounds interesting. Maybe I could get into that, or I want to learn more about that. So it's always good to think about in a wide variety of anything that intrigues you.
Excellent. Edward, do you want to chime in on that at all?
Sure. I think Matt nailed it. And, what I'd say is it's driven by sort of what your interests are, and that's fine, right? The other thing I think is operating rhythm, right? So, we talked about, the market-driven roles are anchored to a market. So markets open and close. Maybe FX is slightly different, but either way, typically, if you're in the sales and trading role, you tend to sort of, maybe slightly earlier mornings and slightly earlier evenings is what I'd say. In my world, it's different, right? So, you might not need to be in at the same time, someone from sales and trading, but you have longer nights. And because I think, as John alluded to, you have, maybe, let's just say, the projects are a little bit longer, or sort of the feedback loop is a little bit different in a capital markets role than it would be on a sales and trading desk. Pressure is also a little bit different. It doesn't mean it's more or less in either scenario, but it is different. And you think about, what works for your personality. Some people just can't get up early, right? I get that. Right? That's it. And maybe that type of role isn't for you unless you just want to force it on yourself. Or, some people love getting up early and they just really don't have to do anything after 6 p.m. Those sorts of things actually are relevant when you're thinking about the types of role you want to take as well. I mean, I always say be open-minded, because it's early in career, so you can always change later on. But I say that's one thing to think about. And then two, well, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 at this point, but I'd say, depending on what you think you might want to do later, which doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing you're doing now, you can think through that in terms of a map of like, well, maybe I'll start here because it gives me the best range for what I might want to do at a later date, assuming obviously it's at NatWest. But more generally, I think that's also worth keeping in mind as well.
I really like the way you put that operating rhythm. I think it's important especially when a lot of you just got out of school a couple years ago, when you're looking at jobs, you're like, all right, here's an investment banking job. I'm just going to apply for these 3. But really taking the time to understand the nuances of the different parts of the company, different parts of the bank are very unique, right? So if, I'm not the person that's going to want the morning job, it's definitely not going to be me. So thinking about that and knowing that you have some power there as a student who's applying for these roles, to look at the role, think about the one that's going to best suit you. And then we're going to talk about interviewing in a little bit. But then when you get to that interview, it's a little more natural to who you are when you've identified the role that suits the type of personality and the work you're looking for. Lauren, can I ask you to chime in on that a little bit? You're in credit sales, so what's that team like?
I think she's saying that she is trying to speak, but we can't hear her.
So here's the
maybe
fun
we can,
part of this, right?
yeah.
This stuff is going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong in your interview. It's going to go wrong when we're doing presentations. I do see where she wrote it's similar to other banks where juniors and seniors are brought in through the investment banking internship. Oh, that's a question. Sorry, I'll come back to that. So Lauren, we will come back to you. We're not letting you. I don't want to lose you completely because I really want to, hear the insight that you have. Kyle, would you mind sharing some big overview with us? Tell us a little bit what it's like when you're looking at, future talent. We've talked about there are all these different roles, different types of personalities, different rhythms. Can you chime in on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've gone through. I've seen plenty of different types of talent come in through the sales desk, and I've seen successes and I've seen failures. And it's really about kind of, you know, from a sales perspective, you're really just we're focused on just trying to find someone who has the personality that wants to get into sales in general. You may not necessarily be interested in interest rates or credit sales, but if we feel that your energy that you give off, and you have if you're talking to us, we all know you have the brains to do the job, but the biggest thing is the energy that you're going to give when you're sitting on the trading desk and there's a lot of things going on and it's a stressful environment, but you can keep your cool, you can be very well organized, and when you're sitting in front of customers, you're very personable and are able to change from one kind of read the room of how the discussion is going. I think that's a very big skill to have, great skill to have in sales. That I've seen plenty of people thought they wanted to be in sales, and a lot of them failed because they, turned out they wanted to go more into kind of a banking role and sit behind a desk and not have to talk to people every day, 24/7.
Right. So back to kind of that rhythm, right? If you're the type of person that's, you do a better job when you're just really hyper focused on something. I have imagined that in sales, the conversations we've had before is you have to be able to bounce. Like if you're reading
Exactly.
the room and you're focused on one conversation, you read the room and it's not going in that direction. You got to be able to pivot there.
Exactly, and I would say that, especially recently, as our group has kind of gotten a little bit smaller, we've each had a lot more work on our plates and clients that we're covering, and so you really have to be able to immediately go from, certainly in the interest rate sales world, go from buying or selling one product to pricing up a completely different product, for a completely different trading desk within the group, and it takes some serious getting used to, because that you immediately have to shift your focus, but still have a very good idea of what's going on in the market at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me, like, when, the success that you've seen with people, what type of background skills do they have, right? So, I mean, communication, the ability to adapt, all that. But what kind of early career jobs have you seen people have where, they're really building the skills that help them to be strong in that area?
Um, I'd say it's kind of gone. I've seen everything from people that have been caddies at golf courses to people that have worked service jobs. And any type of service job, really, I think, is where I've seen the most success, because it's people that have seen early on in a completely different types of scenario, having to deal with completely different types of people, and being able to react to that and still work through that, especially at a young age. And that was my background. I worked at a golf course for 8 years throughout high school and college. And not to sound biased, but I think that's where those types of jobs have really, I've seen really good success in for those types of candidates.
I am so excited that you're saying this. We had a conversation just this past weekend with our freshman class, the business connections students, and we were talking about those early career jobs and the ones that you don't think add a lot of value to who you are and to your skill set. It's amazing how you are really learning, that sales skill, the ability to communicate with people, that problem solving. You're learning it from some of those really early career jobs. Matt, tell me a little bit about.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, 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 no. I was just agreeing with you absolutely, and I didn't realize how grateful I was for that job until I actually stepped in doing this role,
Mhm.
because it just came so natural to me from that job.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to kind of keep it going for a minute here. So, if there are students that are looking to apply to NatWest and they have those types of experiences, how do you think they can take that, that experience and kind of fold it into the conversation of an interview?
The best I've always seen is, and I always like to hear from, is that it's kind of very generic, but um, challenges that I've faced, whether they've gotten yelled at, whether they've had a you know had an issue where clearly a customer was not happy, and describe how you actually went about making the customer happy, or how you reacted to getting screamed at, because you know we I get screamed at every day from customers, and it's not because of my wrongdoing. It's because of they're in a high stress environment. We're in a high stress environment. It
Hmm.
sometimes just kind of happens, and you have to know that it's not you. It's the situation, and you have to deal with that accordingly. So I like to hear what people have, how they've kind of managed that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's, part of what we try to do with Virtual Career Tuesday is that insight, right? So what you're actually sharing right now is just so important to the students because it's coming from you, right? So if
Hmm.
we say, you can use those early careers and the skills that you're building, hearing it from, the team that we have here today is enormously helpful. Edward, you kind of talked about the operating rhythm. Tell us a little bit more about your area, kind of the same thing. What's an early job that you think really lends itself to the same kind of skills you use for your job?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know if what I'd say is it all adds up.
Hmm.
No specific job. There's value in every job that you do. I think it's on you to figure out how to articulate that value depending on who you're speaking to, right? Because if you're talking to me, and I already said our operating rhythms are different, I'm a capital
Hmm.
markets person. Historically, we're looking for people that grind, right? People that actually, you know, the work pace is it doesn't burn as hot as a trading floor, but it gets hot and it stays for a little bit longer at times, right? Because the project's a little bit longer.
Yep.
So I'm not always necessarily looking for a specific role as much as I'm looking for things that articulate your personality. Because to me, as a person that's coming in, I'm not expecting you to be better at my job, your job than I am. I did your job,
Hmm.
right? So what I'm looking for is your body of work that sort of tells me what type of person you are, right? So Kyle mentioned how you deal with problems. That's always key, right?
Hmm.
Um, Ultimately, all of our jobs are about problem solving in
Hmm.
some capacity. And
Right.
I think every job you're on, in theory, you should be able to come up with a way where you somehow added value, or you just noticed something that was different and you did something about it. And I think if you can at least get to that point, the rest, I'm already assuming, like Kyle said, you're already smart if we're talking anyway. So at that point, that's just a baseline, right?
Right.
Therefore, what I'm looking for is sort of something different. The other thing I'd say too, regardless of where you interview with, make sure you retain the confidence in what you bring to the table,
Hmm.
because sometimes it's also on me as a hiring manager to be able to see that, and some people just won't, and that's okay. And sometimes it does have to match up on both sides. And so maybe you get a lot of no's, or people are just diminished what you think is important, or or it's your work experience is the work experience you were able to get, and you didn't have the benefit of being able to be on some special internship or whatever.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're still trying to deliver a personality and an ambition level to the person that you're interviewing with that hopefully connects with them. And sometimes it's on them to sort of see some value in you that might be different than what might be on that piece of paper. So I'll just bring that up generally. But yeah, for me, there's no specific job, as much as I'm always looking for a personality that works, that's naturally curious, that kind of is naturally ambitious. Um, the classic go getter stuff is all key, but someone that's generally a problem solver, that's okay under pressure, is generally sort of what I'm looking for. And if your work background proves that, great. Um,
Hmm.
Maybe you don't do a lot of jobs, but you volunteer a lot. Okay, because that also says something about what's important to you, so I can get that too. But there's other ways to kind of answer the question.
Hmm.
So I think you're always you're a package. You're not just like one particular role. But anyways, I'll stop there.
Oh, I know. Well, you touched on a couple really important things. Like curiosity, I think, is one of the most critical skills, right? If you're going to go into any type of finance industry, you need to be curious about what's happening in the markets in the world. For those of you that are watching this, there's a good blog. I don't know if it's like a video blog that you have on your website. Like I know John Briggs, I looked at that this morning. John Briggs was giving just a quick, like 3 or 4 minute, update on what's happening in the markets. So, going to NatWest's website, I can say that, the website, and you can learn about, some of the things that are really important to the company before you even go into the interview. I do want to touch on, because you did mention internships. John or Matt, did either one of you go into NatWest through an internship?
I did not. Um, we don't. We don't have an internship program in the U.S. at this time. I'm not sure if that's something they want to bring back in the future, but
Okay,
I don't think we've done it since 2015 or so.
which is probably why we couldn't find those on the website.
Yeah. But it's great because it definitely, like, Eddie said, you can come in with a wide variety of experiences and backgrounds. And
Hmm.
I think what everyone would probably agree to is, what really drives success here is people who want to work hard, be intellectually curious, and whether you're passionate about, volunteering, or you're passionate about your mock government, or, being part of, the chess club, if you have a passion, and you want to work hard, there's a wide variety of, roles and careers you can find with not just NatWest, but investment banking and finance that will really serve you well to kind of really hone in on those, personality traits that you have. And it'll always serve you well, to bring it back to what we said earlier about, really working hard and having a good work ethic. No matter what you do, you'll never know how it will serve you down the line. And people can immediately kind of tell, what type of person you are, and your persona, and that comes from a wide variety of experiences in your life. And that's why it's so important to stay active on campus, stay active connecting with alumni, attending events like this, and just doing what you can to really open yourself up to a wide variety of experiences, no matter how rudimentary, elementary, or mundane it might be to, log into a Career Tuesday, or watch it while you eat your lunch tomorrow, over at the student union. So it all adds up.
Yeah. And that's actually a good segue into, because I mean, one of the things that I've seen in the news lately, and certainly something that NatWest is proud of, is the commitment that you have on racial equity. I think you just released a report, banking on racial equity, equality. I can say that word, equality. And we have so many student groups on campus. If you haven't had the chance to do an internship, if you haven't, had that long-term position, you can draw on all the experiences that you have on campus from all the groups that you belong to as well. There's a beautiful synergy between, a lot of the social work that you do, and then connecting with, companies like NatWest who are working in that space as well. I do want to be kind of cognizant of everybody's time. We set this for 30 minutes, but I always know that I want to stay on longer and ask more questions. But we have 2 students on, so do either one of you want to ask a question?
Don't be shy.
They're already brave. They're already brave enough.
Did you guys go through like a typical super day, or was it like, again, like you explained, a senior internship, where you went through the program and were just like offered the job?
Maybe I'll touch on mine quickly because I know it kind of changes from year to year, but it's definitely like, as Eddie said, like there goes a lot into finding the right candidate. And
Mhm.
I think there's a variety of experiences that you can have here, interviewing. And I'll just kind of say broadly, it's a little bit different than I think what you might have heard or experienced through, your more traditional sort of American bank kind of recruiting process where, here you're really being in any of these roles that are open currently and then what we're recruiting for the full-time cycle, you're joining a team directly rather than going through a placement of an internship or kind of a program. So I probably had anywhere from I did phone interviews on campus, came into the office, then met people after the office. I know people who just came into the office and some people who had to do phone interviews and screens. And I think what it will come down to is whoever you're probably going to join, they want to do a really good job of meeting you and also showing you a lot of different teams because I think you can come through the process and there could be multiple people who might find you talented and may want to work with you. And it'll come down to maybe actually interviewing you of where you might want to work if,
Hmm.
you find a job in credit or FX or with Eddie or working with our risk professionals. I've seen that happen as well, so it's dynamic and it changes. But maybe Eddie has a little more insight since he's kind of our superior of how he kind of views some of his groups.
Kathy and company, since our time is getting short, there was a question in the chat, some of which has already been answered already, that you don't currently have an internship program. But the question also goes on to say that many of the positions are based in Europe. So those of you who are on this call today, I believe may be based certainly virtually or in Stanford. So since these are entry-level jobs for graduates, are they, I believe that you said that your rotation was in London and other places, but are there spots for graduates in the United States, or for some reason, somebody's saying that they think that many of them are based in Europe?
Yes, I think there is I have to follow this on our side, but I don't think our current link got onto Handshake. I think
Okay,
there may have been an issue or two. So we definitely follow up with us to kind of get that sorted out. But we definitely have jobs that are, graduate program in the US. I think there is a little problem currently with the link, but we'll certainly get over the correct version and you would be based here in the United States. And just traditionally, as part of you joining the analyst program, analysts go through a global training together where you start out traditionally in London and you learn together. And then we have colleagues who come back, work full time in the United States. We have graduates who, work in London permanently, graduates who work in Asia permanently. But yes, there are certainly full-time roles available here in the United States.
okay, good to hear. And we'll help you then with Handshake.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see, I did one more round of questions here. So far, none.
I do have a question before we go, if that's okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I know typically in like the banking industry, it's typically very like fast paced, as you were saying, high pressure. Is there anything that you would say that your company does differently relating to company culture, like anything like employee resource groups or anything to like really help different associates bond between teams and instill like a better company culture?
I can hop in on that. I'd say the biggest thing for us is the fact that we are a very flat company when it comes to hierarchy. Yes, obviously everybody has their titles, but when it comes to the work that you're actually doing, everyone's doing it side by side. So I cover accounts that I have a little bit more knowledge of than my own boss who runs sales. And have access to leaders of the company probably a lot easier than you would anywhere else. And you really get to understand the ins and outs of their opinion and the company probably a lot more, I think, than you would elsewhere. And I think that's really cool about this place is that for someone who, even an analyst, is covering accounts that they probably would never get to cover anywhere else.
John, can I ask you, and if this is confidential, you don't
Sure.
have to answer it, but are you sitting on the trading floor right now?
Yeah, sorry, it's end of the day, but I wanted to stay on.
Yeah. No, I think that's great
Yeah,
because
working from
I
home,
don't
but
think people realize the size of the trading floor. Oh, so he knows.
Unfortunately, I think John's service gets worse as he enters the nexus of the trading
well,
floor. But he's here and I'm here, and yeah,
yeah, we have
it's a
to. We
pretty
can.
cool experience.
Yeah, we're about 100 yards away though, so it's like maybe not quite that far.
Well, I will say that, you know, the times that we've been able to go down to Stanford to see the headquarters, you know, it's an amazing feeling of people really working together, but you know, in a super competitive industry, but NatWest and RBS also have had such an inclusive environment, like of people working together and not. I never got the feeling there really that, you know, it was, you know, groups against groups, like everybody is working together in the company. And I think that's an important distinction to be able to think about when you're looking at different types of investment banks, you know, back to the personality of the bank that you're looking for and talking to as well. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, Matt? One piece of advice for a student?
Sure. One piece of advice is, you know, definitely be active, be involved. The time at UConn, the resources that are available there, are truly incredible. And I probably personally didn't appreciate all of them until it was time to come back to work and connect with my other colleagues who came from other universities and reflect back upon it. You know, I think the most important thing you can do, whether or not it's great to be in person now, but you know, even if things are virtual or things constantly change, you know, being active with your colleagues, your community. There are so many resources. It is absolutely amazing. And you may not know what you want today, or you may not like that first club you go to, or you may not like that first professor that you go to office hours with, or anything like that. But I promise you, there is a lot of good to be found at the university and at the career office and with all the different clubs. And it's incredible. So please get out there and do as much as you can to make the most of your time at university, because you truly do miss it, and it's very special. So I'll leave it at that.
Guys, spoken like a true alum. How about you? I guess you go by Eddie, Edward.
No, I do. And word of advice, be confident in your skills, you know, and the work that you put in before you got here, which kind of means you need to put the work in before you get here. But assuming all that stuff happens, be confident in yourself, because that you'd be surprised how that confidence flows through, particularly in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And be aggressive about what you want, because I think everyone responds to energy, especially sort of a desire from somebody to want to get something done or be different or just change something or whatever that happens to be for you. Define it for yourself, but sort of, I think, as you think about your next steps, regardless of where you try and go, I think that's what you should have in the back of your mind when you're in those interview situations and in terms of what you're trying to portray, because I think it goes a long way. But that's it for me.
I like it. Kyle, you want to jump in there?
I think everyone kind of hit it on the head there. So I'll keep my response to that. And I think everyone's exactly thinking the same thing I did.
Kind of saying ditto, huh? But you know, and we'll close it out here. But I think one of the really important things that I want to make sure that the people that are watching this think about is, you know, we've had really, you know, some wonderful insight from all of you on this call. Not a single one of you had said that you have to like have every kind of technical skill in order to do this job. I mean, all of you have talked about your personal roles, your curiosity, your risk tolerance, your operating rhythm, you know, for students to remember that you can learn all of the technical stuff, right? I mean, you're going to learn on that in your classes, but what I heard from all of you, and you know, feel free to correct me because this is the time to do it, but what I heard from all of you is it's really important to know who you are, to know what you want, and to be able to speak to your own personal skills.
100%.
Right. John, I know you're kind of flipping there with service, so
Oh, no, I'm
I'm gonna
fine.
give you a
Yeah, yeah.
chance. Last piece of advice.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everyone covered it very well, like what Kyle said, but I would also just encourage, I think one thing I didn't do very often that I think would have been beneficial when I was in university was just like reaching out to people in the industry and
Mm.
asking them questions. Like, don't be afraid to, you know, um, send me a message on LinkedIn, or I don't know if my email's included in this, or you can email me if you have any questions, or sort of just trying to talk to people in the industry. I was sort of always like intimidated by doing it, and like now it sort of just seems silly that I was, because the worst thing that can happen is someone just doesn't respond. Like, so
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing I would add. And then you can sort of get a better feel for, what the different roles are, what the day-to-day is like, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, John. Even just to discuss with people within your network, or, you know, a friend of a friend, and it doesn't necessarily need to be about a job or an internship, but just to get to know the industry a little bit more, get to know if you think you're interested, just, reach out to see if they'll just give you kind of the rundown and see if it sounds interesting or not. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, you figured out that information pretty quickly.
Yeah, how wonderful is it to like learn that something that you thought you absolutely wanted isn't exactly where you want to go, and you can make that adjustment, right? That's going back to that curiosity again. Anybody on the career team who wanted to say anything before we sign off? I always put everybody on the spot like that.
You absolutely do, Kathy. I just really want to say thank you to Eddie, Kyle, John, and Matt. Matt, it's great to see you once again representing the UConn and giving really students the inside scoop as far as what types of career opportunities are out there within, whether it's investment banking or any other offshoots within NatWest. You really picked a great company, a great place to grow, and thank you again for spending the time with us here this afternoon.
Nice.
Of course, and thank you for joining us and dealing with the technical and the virtual. It's always great to be involved, and everyone is really looking forward to connecting with students and being a part of the university. So thank you as well.
Thank you, Matt. Absolutely. We'll definitely send them your way.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. And for those of you that are watching this, keep following on the website for all of the different virtual Career Tuesday sessions. And I am going to stop recording right now. If I can get my mouse to move over to that screen. This could be a really awkward, slow stop. All right, everybody, thank you so much. And Matt
Thanks so
will be
much.
in touch.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I still can't stop.